So 5 or 6.
All right. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. If we got a smaller group today, I don't think we need microphones. Everyone can hear me just fine. Yeah. All right, cool. Well, welcome to the Bitcoin and Open Blockchain Meetup. I think I see a few new faces. We have new people here today. All right, welcome.
Welcome, everyone.
I'm Hannah. That's Ian. Chris, the guy that's out in the hallway that might have ushered you this way. We're all organizers, so if you have any questions, come and have a chat with us. We are streaming on YouTube, so if you don't want to be on YouTube, stay behind that little camera right there. We do work off of donations, so we're just a community organization. So if anyone's feeling generous, we have a QR code for Bitcoin donations and a jar for there are drinks back there, coffee, water, help yourself. There will be pizza towards the end we talk about 3 p.m. or something. But before we do our main event, which is BlockStack, we do lightning talks. We have 2 lightning talks today. So you get 2 minutes. I am going to actually look on my phone. Yeah, you know the drill. Yeah, 2 minutes. If you go over 2 minutes, I'm shoving you out of here and back down to your seats. So come on up.
Hello, everybody. I'm sure you've all placed a bet before. Don't answer that. I'm building Vigorish.io, high stakes decentralized. Vigorish means the percentage taken by the organizers of the bet. So in this case, it'll be 3%. And here's the secret sauce: is 1% kind of a make-or-take rule if you're familiar with finance. 1% will go back to the bookmakers. This will allow them to API into the system, code bots, and fill up the order book, incentivizing liquidity. So there is some competition in the space. None of them there's only one that's launched in ICO so far. At the top of the market in December, they were valued at 150 million. Now they're between 30 and 40, but they don't even have an MVP. Build it, brand it, take it public. That's pretty much the formula for business. So to build it, I'd like to get Intellect Soft. They've worked with Harley Davidson, Universal, Nestle. They want about 150,000. Law firm wants 75,000 and 1%. Your own Josephine Bellini from Chicago Blockchain Project, she needs about 10,000 to brand the whole thing. And then as far as branding, there's ICO. Sorry, lost the name. But they need a few $1,000s to help market the whole thing, about 20 and 1%. So when you're asking for money, ask for more than you need, because there's always going to be slippage. I need about $2 million to build the whole thing and launch it. If you're a gangster, you know some gangsters that have some checkbooks or bags of money or whatever, I'll give you 2% back for whatever you help me raise. So I'm Morgan Simcox, Vigorish.io, high stakes, decentralized. All
right, thank you. All right, 2 minutes.
2 minutes, I'll try using that 50.
All right.
Hi, everyone. My name is Andrew Gordon. I'm one of the founders of Z11K Blockchain Accelerator in Chicago. As the name suggests, we are a blockchain accelerator. We help to take projects from basically the idea stage to the MVP or minimum viable product. We provide funding, office space, resources, legal, accounting, really all the support you need to be able to take your idea to that stage. At the end of a 3-month program, there's a demo day, and hopefully at that stage you raise additional money or we launch an ICO. We've seen one of the main problems with ICOs is that it's very expensive to do so compliantly, and so we help with that issue. We allow a way to do it legally, compliantly, without having all that initial capital upfront. If you're interested, Z11K.1, or just come and talk to me. So again, Z11K.1. Thanks.
All right.
40.
Yeah. Good. All right, cool. So we're going to be talking about BlockStack today, or Aaron is going to be talking about BlockStack. This is a more general talk. We do have a very developer workshop which is happening on Wednesday evening. If you want to go a bit more in depth into some technical details of that. All right. So Aaron is an engineer at BlockStack. Has an academic background. You got your PhD last year.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. And the PhD was on web app performance and security. And Aaron also has experience with flow tracking, caching algorithms, compilers, and applied cryptography. So all kinds of crypto things, and now he's going to tell us all about BlockStack. So welcome Aaron.
Thank you so much.
I built myself like a little cave over here, so I'm not going to be very mobile, but that's my one. This is cool.
That one's fun. Thank you.
All right, cool. Thanks everybody for coming out. Thank you, Hannah, for the introduction. Today I'm going to be talking about decentralized applications, where BlockStack fits in, and importantly, like why we're trying to build all of this stuff. So the general plan for this talk is I'm going to give like a little bit of an introduction to BlockStack. I'm going to talk about the technology that underpins a lot of what we've built, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about how we are building and plan on building sort of the ecosystem around our platform. Okay, so let's start with the intro. So when talking about BlockStack, I think it's important to start with some motivation. So when you tell people we're building a new internet, maybe the first response is like, why? The internet was like really hard to build in the first place. It seems to function just fine. So why would you want a new one? So I'll talk a little bit about that. I'll talk a little bit about what BlockStack considers a decentralized application. Because if you spend much time in this space, really any time at all, you discover that everybody throws around the world, they need different things when they say it. And then finally, I'll tell you what BlockStack is, what our technology is. Okay. So the internet that we have today didn't quite turn out as we would have hoped, or maybe inventors would have hoped. So if you think about what the internet looked like in the 90s, what people sort of dreamt about the internet looking like, it was going to be this open platform where people were going to build all sorts of like wonderful applications on top of it. People were going to connect in ways that they hadn't before, and this was going to be this like wonderful, liberating thing for the world. But it didn't quite turn out that way. The internet that we have today has like a ton of problems. So the first is, when we build these like massive data platforms that everybody's interacting with, things like Twitter, or Facebook, or banking websites, you create these sort of data silos and data centers and stuff where it is like very appealing to a potential attacker to like get access to that data, because suddenly we're storing all of the most sensitive information in the world in like one place. So it's like very tempting for a would-be hacker to obtain that. Second, like even if these applications are working correctly and they're securing your data correctly, it opens up the entire platform of the internet to things like tracking, data harvesting, advertising in like the best case. And this can be like a really negative experience for users and really the world as a whole, right? If you think about it, like we built these platforms like Twitter or Facebook essentially to like share photos of like cats and dogs and like babies with each other. And what we've done is we've like given these people the power to like overthrow governments, which is crazy. All right. Second thing, or the third problem that we have with the internet that we have today is that like it becomes very problematic as soon as you sort of lose control over your accounts on these websites. There's things like private passwords, phishing attacks where they gain access to your email, and those kinds of problems with the way that we've structured the internet today lead to things like identity fraud, other sorts of really bad problems for users. And sort of the next real problem that we experience today is like when you have these powerful platforms where, for running one of the platforms, you get, all these benefits from being able to mine users' data for information, sell that data to advertisers, actually advertise to people. You get platform lock-in, or it becomes really tempting if you run one of these platforms to try to lock in your users so they can't leave, which stifles innovation on the internet today. And really what all of these problems have to do with is just really the nature of power on the internet. So the internet today, all the power, or really the benefits of the internet that we have today, come from these network effects, right? So if you look at Twitter or Facebook, the power that they get is from the fact that there's a billion users. But even though there's this sort of decentralized power that they're harvesting, all of that power, all of the profits from that network go to the operators, the people like Twitter. So let's look at a little bit more detail in these. So when you think about honeypots and hacks, the way to frame this is over the last few years, we've experienced the biggest data leaks in the history of the world, and people just barely even pay attention to them anymore. So if you think about the Equifax hack, that's this big circle indicating that it was a fairly large data leak. So that was 143 million people that lost their data. But that's a drop in the bucket compared to some of these other data leaks, right? There are data leaks of billions of users, and these things are going to continue more and more in the future, right? These have been accelerating every single year. It starts to be almost a non-story when these leaks do happen. Yeah, so data silos, not great. Okay, so why are people building these data silos in the first place? It's because they want to hold your data, and they want to hold it hostage from you, right? So as you put more and more data on a platform like Facebook, Facebook is able to mine that data for information about your friends, your spending habits, how you vote, stuff like that. And so they get very protective about that data, and they don't want to share it with other applications, other people that want to build on the platform. So there's a lot of incentives, basically, on the internet of today to build these kinds of things. So we would expect to continue seeing these things happen as long as we have these centralized services. Yeah, so I guess one of the first things you do once you build one of these data silos is that you try to make sure that your customers find it difficult to actually exit the platform. So if you think about people shutting down their Facebook or their Twitter accounts, they don't really feel that much power to do so because they feel like they're going to miss out on things that their friends are doing. And it's all these different sort of subtle ways that these platforms try to lock their users in so they can continue to harvest their data. Okay. So the power that we have on the internet today is ultimately captured by these platforms. So these middlemen. If you think about why they're trying to get all of this power, it's because this power is can be used for all sorts of things. If you think about what developers are able to do on the internet that we have today, if you want to start a new application, you have to be able to connect to Facebook or Twitter or whatever. And if you look at the history of applications built on top of these platforms, it's actually pretty damning. So if you think about the early days of Twitter, there were tons of different Twitter clients that actually had perfectly okay business models, right? They would try to sell you the client, they would try to sell subscription services and things like that. But basically, once you've built an application on top of a platform and demonstrated a way to make money with it, the platform operator says, well, I like making money, so I'm just going to do this instead of you. And they essentially shut down your application. The same story is sort of told over again when you think about the relationship between users and these applications. So even if an application starts out with like the best intent to like treat their users well, not track them too much, eventually like market pressures will force them to do so, right? So if you look at startups in particular, where they gain a lot of traction with their users, and then at some point, they get a big payday and they sell their startup to someone like Twitter or Facebook. Basically, the first thing that happens when they do that is that their data becomes the data of a company that's not going to treat their users quite as well. So we give the power of our data over to these companies pretty much every day on the internet that we have today. And this, enables them to do all sorts of things, right? So like if you start violating, say, Twitter's speech policies or whatever, or they perceive you to, they can shut down your account at any point in time, right? So they can deny you access to your data, deny you access to what has become your like online identity and things like that. And then finally, like over the past couple years, we've seen that these companies can actually use this power like pretty nefariously in ways that we would call like soft power or something like that. But like Twitter, Facebook, like they have the ability, they have these algorithms for like showing you different things in your feed, and they can like manipulate your emotions, manipulate who you perceive as friends, who you perceive as enemies, and like ultimately, overthrow governments, right? Like if you look at what has been going on politically over the last couple of years, Twitter and Facebook have had, I would say, probably an undue influence on elections across the globe, right? Okay, so when you think about like how much power we've given to these people, right? Like it's crazy. Like no person or company should really have this much power. In particular, like no company that's like making something as trivial as Facebook or Twitter are should have this much power and have this much responsibility. So I think we can do better by building a new internet. And I think we can do it by decentralizing the network, right? Making sure the applications we are building don't have this incentive for the people who are building them to try to track their users, to try to take their users' data and use it in ways that aren't necessarily in their users' interests. So I want you to imagine for a second that we had an internet where there weren't any data silos, where there weren't any middlemen that could try to extract power and profits from the network. There weren't ads. There wasn't this like incentive to track your every movement on the internet, and there was no block, right? So when you think about this, right, like really that's the way that the internet should have maybe always been. So if you have an internet where you have data that actually is owned by its users, right? When you use different applications, right, like you would be able to take your data between those applications, right? And this would support an ecosystem where, any app developer could create a different app and then say, okay, if user A wants to use it, like they show up and like they bring their friends along with them, they bring their data along with them, right? And so you could have like real innovation in the application ecosystem, really much more than you have today. The next sort of benefit of real user-owned data is that, like, if I post something or like I have data that people have a problem with or disagreement with, or it's illegal under some rule, right? It would be like my problem instead of the actual application's problem, right? So like a lot of the impetus for like filtering or censorship online is that these platforms like Twitter, Google, Facebook, they have to worry about large governments that like are trying to enforce their laws, right? Not just in the US, but also abroad. And so they're actually responsible for what their users are doing on their platform, which leads to some, sort of weird issues between their users and the platform itself. And finally, if we actually get to this place, right, the CEO or the person that runs the app you use to share cat photos wouldn't also have the power to say, like, open where you're going, or like convince, you know, for mobs to take the streets, which is kind of the situation we're in today. Okay, so this is all great, but like, how do we actually build decentralized apps? So the first thing that we absolutely need to do is put users back in control over their data, right? So we have these computers that we use every day that are like sophisticated computation machines, right? Like it has a CPU, it has like a hard disk, right? Like you should be able to control what it's doing, how it's doing it, and like where it's storing data, right? It's crazy that we're not able to do that today. The second thing we need to do is just remove these trusted third parties, right? So like even if a user is controlling their data, they shouldn't just be like trusting random network operators to tell them who they're allowed to share with, when, and like how the data is going to be flowing around the network. So what does this mean for actual application developers, right? Because this is going to change the way that people have to make apps, right? So if you're actually building a decentralized app, the application itself is told by its users where user data is going to be stored, right? And if you think about like the way that it works today, right? If I make an application, I deploy it to some server on the internet, run it in a VM or something, right? When users come to my app, right, I'm storing all their data in some sort of like centralized database. I'm making data storage decisions for the user, right? But in a decentralized app, it has to work the other way around. So you have to have a way to do that. Decentralized apps are also told how data is going to be encrypted, and if data is encrypted, what's it encrypted under. So like, you know, if users are using decryption keys, you know, they're sort of in control of that rather than the app. Decentralized apps also don't have a notion of who the user is until the user shows up. So if you think about identity on centralized apps, Twitter or Facebook, right?